What's up, party people? It's Geared Up, our weekly live broadcast where we talk about gear, do lighting breakdowns, talk about techniques, have fun, take your questions, learn something about lighting. This week, we're talking about on-camera flash. I think for the most part, people think of on-camera flash and they go, no, we have to get our flash off of our camera. But on-camera flash is incredibly useful. One, you don't have to carry around extra stuff. You have your camera, you have a flash on top of it, and that can do a lot of really nice things just with that setup. And then you have a lot of options that you can kind of take and expand and grow on that, which I think are really cool. It can give you an opportunity, especially in a world where everyone's everyone wants to be off camera, which again has its benefits. It gives you a lot of creative flexibility in how you place your light, what you do with your light shaping tools, all this kind of stuff. But again, on camera can be really cool, and it gives you the opportunity to make it your own, come up with the things that you like, and have fun with it. So that's what we're gonna be talking about today for the most part. We're gonna dive into how to use an A10 on top of your camera. Last week, we kind of went through the nuts and bolts of the A10, talking about what it does, how do you do all these different things. Today, we're gonna do it practically and just talk about what it does. We're gonna talk about some techniques for using an on-camera flash. So if you're new to on-camera flash, or if you're new to flash in general and you think the on-camera route's the way you wanna go, here's some techniques for things that may be beneficial to you if you don't necessarily love the look of on-camera flash. I personally do. I like the way it looks. I think it's kind of fun. But yeah, so we're gonna have some fun with that. So first, let's dive into putting it on top of your camera and what does and doesn't happen. So for today's demonstration, I'm gonna be handheld for the most part. So I'm gonna not use my GFX today. I'm actually using my XH2S, which is fun. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to handle, and also I can zoom, which is gonna be handy for some of this stuff. So, in its most simplest form, taking an A10 and putting it on top of your camera and locking it into place, you're ready to rock and roll for the most part. Now, one of the things that we talked about last week, this TTL and manual switch. If the thing that is controlling the flash isn't touching the hot shoe, this TTL manual switch does not matter. Now, because the flash, which is being controlled by the body of the A10, is touching the hot shoe, this is where we're going to control our TTL and manual settings for this light. So if we want to shoot in TTL mode, if we're in a scenario where we're moving or our subject's moving and we need the light to power up or power down based off of the distance that's constantly changing, TTL is your buddy. Some things to note: you can control your flash exposure compensation. So in TTL mode, if I were to just go in here and try to turn that power up, what's going to happen is my camera's just going to, as soon as I press the trigger, it's just going to switch the power back. So like, here, let me flip it over to manual mode. I'll put it into 6.5, right? Flip it back into TTL mode. But as soon as I squeeze the trigger, 4.2, okay? So no matter what you do with that dial, the TTL is going to override it. The camera is the boss in TTL mode, and it's going to tell the flash, this is the exposure I need to make whatever you're pointing this camera at 18% gray. So we have to use in TTL mode flash exposure compensation. You can access it one of two ways with your camera. So one, you can do it in camera. So with my, I don't know where the flash exposure compensation button is because I never use it on my XH2S. But the easier route is to use the dial right here on top of your camera right here. I mean, it's shutter button here, dial right there. So now I could go, I want a stop more light than that. So I could just flash exposure compensate up on stop, and you can see from 4.2 to 5.2.
Can I share these images?
No, you don't have to share these images. This is just me strictly showing you that in TTL mode, the camera's the boss. You're not the boss. You are playing backup, kind of. You are the boss, but you make your changes with flash exposure compensation, and that's how that's going to work. So if I point over here, 5.4 is the power. If I point over here, 5.9 is the power, but I've just compensated up for that. So that's how you're going to control the power on your A10 in TTL mode on top of your camera. So you choose that dial, exposure compensate up or down as you need it. So, and then other than that, the rest of your stuff is going to be your off-camera flash stuff, which we're not really going to dive too much into today. We can talk about it for a split second, but yes. Now, You also have some options too. We talked about it a little bit last week. I'm using a zoom lens, so I can actually set my zoom motor to automatic. Let me get back out of here. There we go. And so now whenever I zoom my, let's see if I can get closer and show you friends this. I know I'm gonna focus it. I'm gonna focus it. I could, but yeah, you're gonna have to come back over here. Yeah, you're gonna have to come over here and reverse. So, so there's your zoom scale right there, essentially showing you an A for automatic. So as I zoom out, you're gonna see that it widens. As I zoom in, it's gonna tighten up. So that's showing you there that that this automatically will go in and out with the zoom of your camera. So you can set that automatic. You can literally reach up here, twist the dial and override it. You can see the A is now gone. And so you could shoot wide. You could shoot wide with your lens, but point the actual reflector a little bit harder if you wanted some vignetting, which is something that we're going to demonstrate here in a few minutes. So that's another thing to know with this on top of your camera. So that's your zoom. You can set it to automatic manual. If you want to go back into automatic mode, there's no quick way of doing it. You just kind of have to go back into your settings and switch it back to automatic. So just something you should know there if you decide to reach up there and kind of ride that ring and change that exposure manually. Perfect. Now you might have to go to the 2 because I'm going to be wildly out of focus. Although I actually look better. Actually, I'm actually way more attractive. I'm way more attractive whenever you can't actually see my face.
That's right.
Flip it back over to 1 real fast.
All the time.
Yeah, flip it back over to 1. This is how Kate sees me.
Yeah.
So it really, really works out for us. So that's, she can't see me now. So cool. So we're going to snap some photos. We're going to talk about some techniques as we go about doing that. I'm going to have Kate jump out here to take some images with, and she's also going to walk over there and refocus that camera because
I'd love to.
Yeah, that's what she wants to do.
All right.
So cool.
Also, you had a friend, Benson, asking a question about an A10.
Yeah. So
let's see here.
Pop it up there real fast.
On the screen real quick while I'm adjusting this.
Cool. So Benson said, hey, Chris, can A10 be used to light up a white background evenly for a business portrait? And I was asking him, I asked a follow-up question. I asked, are you talking about it with it on your camera? Or are you talking about it off of your camera? And he's talking about off camera. So can you light up a white background with an A10? With one, I think we talked about this a little bit with our other lives where we were talking about lighting up a white background. Can you do it with one? Sure, you need some space. Like you need to be able to kind of hide the light behind your person, your subject, and then have enough space between the person and the background to not get like a sharp vignette around them. Is it possible to do? Sure. You're gonna have to just play with your space. It's better to have 2. That way you can more evenly light the white background. So that's where I would say to go, with any light. The A10 would do a beautiful job of lighting white background. The A2 would do it. A Pro 11 would do it. It's just about getting even light across the background, and one is difficult to do without a little bit of space or something that can throw the light super wide. But at the point that you start putting a lot of modifiers on there to do that, the light might actually start creeping around your subject. So something to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. So that being said, let's take our first image. Again, I personally like the look of on-camera flash. I think it's kind of fun. It's just
Charles, we'll get to your question in just a minute.
Yeah, Charles, we'll check your question here in just a second. I like the look of on-camera flash, and ignore that photo that's up there. We'll get to kind of like what's happening there. But from an on-camera flash perspective, I'm going to close my camera down just a little bit so I don't have so much
right here?
Video light. Yeah, it's fine. It's just going to be a direct shot. I'm going to f8, shutter speed of 250, ISO 160, and let's see what we're looking like here. So I'm going to override the zoom settings of my flash just so we can show you the different things. So right now, my A10 is zoomed all the way out. My lens is also zoomed all the way out, so we can actually kind of see the coverage. It may not be the best composition on the entire planet, but you can actually see how the light throw works. Oh, I have to go backwards hat. There we go. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. And so the wide throw, let's see what we're looking like. Are we talking? There we go. So the wide throw does a good job of covering Kate for the most part, pretty even. Top to bottom, it looks like it has coverage. Now what I would say is that we're a little underexposed with that. So what I'll do is simply go up to my flash exposure compensation. let's just see what happens if I give it half a stop. So just flash exposure compensation, and just so you can kind of see what we're talking about here. This is power level of 7.2, so this should jump up to like 7.7. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, that jumped to 9.2. That might be a little overexposed. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a little over, but you can see how much coverage. It's really not that bad.
No, it's not bad. Maybe a little bit. Not for them though.
It's not over, yeah, and it's not really overexposed for me at all. It just it bumped the TTL, wanted to bump the power up. But you can see how much you can cover with the light set to a really wide coverage. And I actually think the light stamp of the A10 is really, really beautiful. I think the Fresnel design is really, really nice, even without the dome. As you can see, I'm not using the dome on there. We'll throw the dome on there in a minute. But now if you take that same light and we zoom the flash head in, we're gonna get a little bit more power. I'm gonna pull that exposure comp back a little bit and see what happens. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. Let's see what we're looking like here. Cool, so I need to exposure compensate back up a little bit, but you can see just by changing the zoom motor or changing the flash zoom, we can actually decide if we want some more coverage or if we want it to be a little bit more pointed and vignetted. Here, let's power up just a little bit. See that half stop again. See if this gets mad at me. I also need to do an XH, that felt like that was a little more powerful. It jumped back up. I need to do a camera firmware update. I'm a bad boy, I'm not taking my own advice. But you can see just between these two images here, I'm gonna set this down on the chair. Let's do Command Click. Oh, you know what, let's go full screen, so. Oh, that's not what I meant. Let's go full screen here so that we can come on. Oh, that's what I need, entire screen. That's what I wanted. Perfect. So the nice thing here is just by controlling that zoom, we still have, we're getting this nice vignette. It's kind of pointing her out. You know, I just I'm gonna pull back that exposure just a hair. There we go. And let's do this one to match. So even with the exposure where I think it should be, again, I haven't updated the firmware on my XH2S, so the TTL is probably not talking perfect. We still have two really, really cool looks. Again, I personally like the look of on-camera flash. I like the sharp shadows. Here, let's go here. Like, I like the sharp shadows like under the chin and stuff. I think that's cool. I think it's a fun look. I like how much it lights up the eyes. But then here, you know, we could get rid of some of the extra studio stuff that we have going on in here and really draw the eyes to the center just by changing up the zoom motor and pointing that light a little bit more. So that's that. So one of the big things that people generally tend to struggle with the idea of on-camera flash and that look right there, which is a very quote unquote flashy look, is just that. They don't like on-camera flash because it looks flashy. Why does it look flashy? It's very simple. Contrast. So when people see this and they're like, oh, I don't want my flash to look so flashy, what they're saying is they don't want so much difference between the exposure from the flash and the rest of the ambience all around the subject. And so you can simply change that up with lowering your shutter speed. So you can start to bring more ambient light into the shot and then even it out with, here, I'm gonna go around you. Sure. And then even it out with your shutter speed. So we have those shots up there. I'm gonna stay relatively tight with the flash beam so we can kind of pull it up and see what happens to that vignetted area with the on-camera flash when we slow the shutter speed down some. One really good tip that I try to get people to do, especially with flash and mirrorless cameras, all these cameras have some sort of assignable buttons. You can set it to the way that you want to. I have my front button on all my Fujis right next to my lens assigned to change my preview exposure. So I can simply, so you can just kind of, it won't be super in focus, but you can see what's going to happen. I can click the button, and now my camera is showing me what it actually sees as far as the ambience goes. So now I could slow my shutter speed down and see how that starts to come back up. Can they see that coming back up?
Yes.
So as I slow my shutter speed down, that ambient light from the studio is coming back up. Granted, I don't necessarily want to shoot that at a 2-second exposure. It's not really gonna achieve what I want, but this, for the sake of showing you what I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So now with my preview exposure turned on so I can see what my fill light's gonna look like from my ambience, we can set that, and then we can use the flash to fill in the subject. So can we get you in here, Kate?
Yeah.
Cool. So this is, I'm gonna have you step forward just a little bit because I don't want those overheads making weird nose shatters. So let's see, I'm gonna take my shutter speed. Let's do this. I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna turn the flash off and I'm gonna show you what I decided to do with just the ambient light. So let's go something like this. Let's see what happens. 3, 2, 1. So this is just ambient light coming into the shot. Flash head is off. Here, I don't like when capture hangs on to my settings. So there you go. So that's what it looks like. No flash right now. Okay, that's just the ambient light and some fun shadows from softboxes blocking light and stuff like that. So now when we kick the light on, we can simply go in here, take our shot, 3, 2, 1. And what that's going to do is it's going to reduce the contrast on Kate. It looks lovely. It's still there's still some contrast there, and if you don't like that, here let me zoom into a little bit tighter. Try to get rid of some of my cart full of things that we're going to talk about today. Cool. Let's go in here. 3, 2, 1. And then if we want to slow that shutter speed down a little bit more, 3, 2, 1. It really comes down to a difference between your flash. So let's go. It's going to be a difference between your contrast, or it's going to be the difference between your flash and your ambient light. So by slowing it down, and granted we're in a studio situation, it's not the most beautiful way of expressing this, but it proves the point. If you're in an environment where you're out in the world, maybe you're at an event and you want it to have a flash look to it, but you want to still have some of the ambiance, just slow your shutter speed down a little bit. Cameras these days are so clean in their ISOs that you could easily get away with most higher ISOs to get that shutter speed a little slower, or keep the shutter speed a little bit faster and bring the ISO up to help with kind of the balance between the two. So just something to keep in mind. That's going to be the big thing between something that looks, even though it's not the same crop, let's just put it in here. Let's go there. Even though it's not quite the same crop, here, let's go here. I'm going to make sure the exposure is just relatively the same. So the big difference is in here is just going to be that there's more ambient light coming into the shot there. Now, what you're seeing for the most part when we're shooting with this stuff is we're having to stay horizontal. That's because if we were to go vertical with an on-camera flash, what generally tends to happen, I mean, granted, we have the light coming from the same side as the lens. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. I'm actually let me speed my shutter back up. I want to get rid of some more of that ambient light. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, a little spicier than I wanted, but I'm happy with that. I gotta get my GFX would be way happier, but I don't want to hold it. So from a vertical perspective, what's going to happen is, the nice thing about shooting this horizontal is the light is coming from above, which feels a little more natural as far as oh, we're over here. The light's coming from above, which feels more natural, just from the human eye, because that's where, for the most part, whenever we're walking around the world, that's where the majority of the light's coming from, and then we're getting some fill from like the ground whether we're walking around concrete or something like that. Now when we go from here where the light's above the camera to here where it's right next to the camera, it starts to feel a little less like appealing to the eye. And then from there, you could do simple stuff like start doing bounce cards up. So let's.
Yeah, so the HB is saying, how about using a dome and a bounce card to flash it up?
We made it to there. We made it to the bounce card. So now with the vertical stuff, this is where things like the flash card that comes inside of your A10 when you purchase it is really, really handy, because now, even though we're not getting the light up a lot higher, we are raising the light from here at this level to here at this level. So we are going to be able to kick out some light. Now, when you use a bounce card, you do lose power. So that's something to keep in mind there. We could also add the dome to the top of this if we wanted to, and we'll do it with and without, just so we can see if visibly there's a huge difference. But we could add the dome here too to help kind of kick a little bit more light forward and kind of throw it a little bit more around. So let's take a couple shots and see what we're looking like here now. So I'm going to be right here, 3, 2, 1. So we definitely powered up that time. So here's one of the big things that's happening here. So let's talk about this. So now we're bouncing. So the difference between something like this, which is direct, let's just pull that exposure back. Oh, wrong one. So let's pull this exposure back here so they closer match. So the big things that you're seeing here, one, the room ambience is bringing up, bringing down the contrast. So what I meant by up is the ambience of the room is coming up because we've now thrown a light into the ceiling and it's starting to kind of bounce all over the place. So now because that ambience come back up, it's going back to what we were talking about a second ago when the difference between the ambience and the flash isn't very great, so the contrast is low, it starts to feel a little bit more natural. It also feels a little bit better because, I mean, like, let's just look at the shadows, for example. So here, when the light's coming from the side, we have this shadow like jutting directly out from the side of her. Luckily, we broad lit her, so it fills in everything really, really nicely. But the nose shadow's going up, which almost feels like an uplight, which is generally not the best for portrait photography, but something to keep in mind. Whereas here, we were able to raise it up a little bit so you can actually see now that that shadow line is starting to creep down. It's still a hard light. We still have a really hard line of demarcation right here at the chin level, right there. You can see that. We still have a sharp shadow under the nose where that light came from, but we did throw a bunch of light into the ceiling to, and that's what's brought that ambient light down. Now, one thing I want to try doing, I have the flash head zoomed all the way in. Let's see what happens if we zoom out and try to hit the flash card a little bit more and see what kind of results we get from something like that. So here we go, 3, 2, 1. Let's see if we got any difference in the two flash cards. Let's go here. So we're getting a little bit less ambient coverage because when we pull down the direction of that on-camera flash, what's happening is there's not as much light hitting the ceiling up here above us. So it's not spreading out and filling in the ambient quite as much. It still did a good job. So it dropped, the contrast increased a little bit. It dropped the ambient light down a little bit because there wasn't as much light getting to it. But as far as the actual quality of the shadows, it doesn't look like anything really changed. Kind of going back here to the nose and under the chin. So the quality of the shadows are very, very similar. So I would, whether it's zoomed in or zoomed out, depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to get some more light into the scene, awesome. If not, maybe you need to spread the zoom reflector on this thing. Now, if we throw the dome on, let's see if, I just want to see if the dome throws a light anything forward. And then we'll talk about flash brackets.
Yeah, we also have a question here.
Ask it.
Okay, so Charles is asking,
what's up, Charles?
About how compensation with respect to subject versus a white dress versus like a dark suit. Sorry, and then it says a revised, compensation with respects, sir, subject, i.e. white dress versus black suit.
Yeah, so especially when you're in TTL mode, you're going to want to, especially if you're in a scenario, I mean, even kind of Kate and I right now, she's wearing lighter colors, I'm wearing all black. In a scenario where you have something like this, spot mode is going to be really, really important because you're going to be able to put your actual meter point onto the thing that you want to expose for. Now, I'm not a wedding photographer, and I know that there are techniques out there that wedding photographers use. And if you're a wedding photographer in here and you have a technique that you use to split the difference, please share, and I'd love to put it out there. But for me, I try to find a solid mid-tone between the two things that I'm going for, and try to expose for that. Now, if the subject's skin is a lot darker than the dress is lighter, you run the risk of overexposing the dress. So this is where the compensation is really, really important. If you pop off a shot and you're like, ooh, that dress is a little bit electric, you could pull that compensation down so that you're not having to, you can keep moving and not, have this, atomic blast of white coming towards the dress. So that's just, and then at the same time, you want to make sure you're walking the line to where you don't lose detail in like a black suit or something like that. So it's a fine line that you're gonna walk, and the nice thing is you can simply ride this flash exposure compensation dial up and down as you're moving along, especially with cameras where you can see the exposure inside your eyepiece. You can literally chimp and not even look like you're chimping, which is one of the dynamite things about mirrorless cameras these days. So I would say bounce card's really, really awesome, especially if you're shooting a lot of vertical stuff, just to get the light a little bit above the camera lens. Now let's just throw the dome on there, see what happens. Again, I like the quality of the Fresnel coming out of the front of this thing, but the dome also does a really nice job of smoothing out. It's not, you do lose a little bit of power. It is frosted, but the opaqueness isn't a full stop of loss, which is really, really nice. So you're not losing too much on your flash in that department. So let's see what we got going on here with the dome. 3, 2, 1. So we lost that half a stop that I was talking about. Let's see what the dome does. The dome did a really good job of, getting some more light to Kate, I think. I think that looks really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that photo.
And then again, the dome's gonna help spread the light just a little bit more. It's gonna diffuse the light out and make it a little more even. So here, let's put the 3 up there together. Hey, what's happening? Tony said, hey. Oh, what's up, Tony? Cool. So let's just throw real fast these last 3 up. So this is all vertical with the bounce card. Last one's with the dome. So with the first one, we had the zoom motor zoomed all the way in, so to the tightest zoom position. So what that's gonna allow for us to do is throw more light into the ceiling, bring the ambient light up, bring the contrast down, so it starts to feel a hair more natural, or a little less flashy, which is essentially just a term that people use when something's too contrasty. The second shot, the ambient starts to get a little bit darker, and that's because we took the reflector and we widened it, so there's not as much direct light going straight above us and filling in those shadows. And then the third shot is with the dome. I personally like shooting vertical with the card and the dome. I like how much light we have towards Kate. I like the split between the ambient light and the actual exposure of her. I think it looks really, really lovely. If you don't love the shadow, here. If you don't love the shadow, come closer to me. Go this way a little bit. Come a little bit closer. A little bit closer. Cool. If you don't love the shadow, you can simply get further away from the wall. I mean, the background's gonna go darker, and the shadow's there a little bit, but it's not as pronounced. The background will go darker just because that's what's gonna happen, but still, that looks lovely. That's a lovely looking shot, and that's all on camera, and that's using only the things that come in the box with an A10. We haven't thrown on any gels or any other light shaping tools at this point. We haven't thrown on a bracket or used anything off camera. So you can make some really lovely images, just understanding what the difference between, again, a shot that looks flashy, a shot that doesn't look flashy, controlling shadows, how kicking that light up a little bit above your lens is going to make it feel a little bit more natural, as opposed to kind of having that, you know, so just so you understand what I'm talking about. So, you know, normally if you're kind of just running around, bop, 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 right? So now the flash head is in line with this from the side, so it's gonna hit your subject at the same angle. Doesn't necessarily look that good, whereas up here, we still at least have the light coming down from above a little bit. So by throwing on our bounce card, and with the dome, I would say, again, I like the look with the bounce card and the dome the most. By throwing on the bounce card and the dome, we've raised that light up to here. So now we're back above the actual flash head itself, so something to think about there.
How many people does a soft bounce? How many people can you cover?
With the soft bounce, I don't. So if you use the soft bounce, how many people will it cover? The soft bounce does, so I don't have one with me to show you, but the soft, I don't have one. I know that I sent mine back. It looks like I always call it the Laura Ingalls. It looks like an old 1800s horse coach, or at least with the covered wagon. That's what it is, the covered wagon. Yeah. It looks like an old covered wagon. It reminds me of Little House on the Prairie. Yeah, Oregon Trail. So it eats a lot of light because you're throwing the light into this thing and having to push it forward just like the bounce card would. But the difference is with the soft bounce, you're not getting the extra light hitting the environment. So it's really just a soft box going forward. How many people can it cover? I guess it depends on your camera settings and how much you've backed up. Once you start backing up to a point, it's not necessarily a soft bounce anymore, so it might not be worth using to try to cover a lot of people. My guess is I'm gonna go with 2, maybe 3 if they're hugging really tight, is where I would feel comfortable saying that you're gonna keep the look of the soft bounce while getting people in the shot. Now, if it starts to get to be bigger groups, just take all that stuff off. You're gonna have to back up anyway for it. Take that stuff off, throw the dome on the top if you need to diffuse the light out towards the edges a little bit more, and roll with it that way. That's what I would say.
He says it reminds him of a nun's hat.
Oh, nun's hat's a good one. Nun's hat's a good one. I've called it the Laura Ingalls since the day we introduced it because it just reminds me of Little House on the Prairie. So, so cool. We talked about using this just on camera, just as is. What if we mix it up a little bit? I'm gonna go back over here away from this thing so I can pull out my cart. What if we shake it up a little bit and we add accessories? Like what if we do other things with on-camera flash? So I think this, in its most basic form, right out of the box, with all the stuff that you get with it, I think it's a really, really good. I'm gonna come a little bit closer. Looks a little dark. Looks a little dark back here. It's probably because the main has a grid on it. There we go. So even with it just out of the box, the way that this is here, you can make some really beautiful images. And again, trying to explain, oh, you know what we didn't do before we even get into this? We didn't talk about strategies with using, before we go any further. I didn't talk about something. And I noticed it when I looked over my left shoulder. So we talked about shooting this thing directly. That thing is dinging. We talked about shooting this thing directly in all of its forms. Again, something that I personally love. But if you don't love the idea of the way that the shadows fall or the directness of the light, the cool thing about having a swiveling head on top of your flash is that you could point it at things and make the light come from different directions. Now, let's talk about it from the perspective of bouncing it off the ceiling, because I think that's where you see most people doing this. And so and we'll come back to the bounce card again here in just a second, but let's talk about just bouncing it off the ceiling the way that it is. You mind getting in here, Kate?
Yeah, of course. I'm just gonna pop this up here. Cool.
So from a bouncing it off the ceiling perspective, let's go here, 3, 2, 1. This is what people have done for a long time, is they'll just, especially if you have a white ceiling that's not too high, you can throw the light upwards and get the look of a flash coming down onto your subject, or overhead light coming down onto your subject. It's not so direct. The shadows are way soft here. We can talk about the shadows real fast. Up under, you know, Kate's nose here, you can see that line of demarcation is really, really smooth. And I want to talk about this too because I don't want to bring anything else into the setup. I want this just to be about it being on camera for a second, and then we're going to mess around with some other stuff. The problem with bouncing it off something like that is it raises the height of the light up quite a bit. And so now looking at that shot, there's no catch light. So, and essentially what the catch light's going to do is give some life to the eyes.
Yeah, I was going to say you can't see the color of
the eyes. There's no life in the eyes. So we can simply change that by adding the bounce card back. I mean, before we even add the bounce card, let's just add the dome. So we're kicking out this little sliver of light forward and see how that changes before we add the bounce card into here.
Chris, can you explain the difference between zooming the head on the A10 versus using the grid on it? Same effect, different result? So
someone's asking, yeah, throw it up there so people can read it. Yeah. So the difference between using the zoom feature versus using something like a grid. So the zoom feature is not going to be able to go down quite as tight as a grid can. And I can grab one of my grids here in a second and just show you the difference between the flash head zoomed all the way in versus throwing on like a 10-degree grid. And you'll see the difference there. But you can get some of that look with the zoom head, like if you want some more of that vignetted style to where the focus is right on your subject, you can do that with that. So, all right, so now let's go let Kate sip on her fruity beverage. Yes, she's hydrated. So now we're just gonna do the dome. We're not gonna do the bounce card forward, and we're gonna see how kicking a little bit of light forward, see if that adds the light to the eyes that we're looking for. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Wait for it to load. There we go. So now, if we bring up both of these shots. So now if we bring up both of these shots, and let's just kind of go into the face. Oh, cool. Give me the grabber, there we go. Give me the grabber tool. So this did kick some of that light forward. So now we actually have some sort of a catch light. We are starting to get a little bit more life into the eyes while still maintaining kind of that softness, that line of demarcation. There is going to be a harder second shadow that comes into this, although it's very faint. So it's not that big of a deal here. So that's just with just the dome. So if we take that same idea and let's throw the bounce card and the dome back on. So now what we're going to be doing is kind of the same idea that we were doing when we went vertical, but what's happening now is we're not using the bounce card to get the light above the flash. The light's already above the flash. We're using the bounce card now to push even more light forward, the volume of light. So before we were using the bounce card, we were just kind of using this edge of the dome. So now we're still using the dome, and the dome's going to help fill the bounce card a little more evenly. But now we're using a larger surface to push some more light forward. So let's see what the difference looks like there. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. And that pushed a lot more light forward. So let's bring up the 3. Can I, there we go, come on. I just want it really to be focused on the face here. So we were able to kick a lot more light forward. The one thing the bounce card is going to do over just the dome is it's going to push the volume of light forward, a lot more of the volume of the light forward. Granted, the catch lights are way more obvious, but our shadows have gotten harder again. So it's just the name of the It's just the name of the game. So it depends on the look that you're going for. Again, I like hard light. I like the hard shadows. I would probably go the bounce and the dome route for this, while also allowing it to fill the ambient. But that's something to think about. What if you want it to be as soft as possible, but you still would like some direction out of it? This is where being strategic with the way that you use your light matters. So We've talked about it on camera and directly at our subject as much as we can. Let's point it at something else. We just pointed at the ceiling. We used our bounce card to push some more of that light forward. What you can also do is you can use walls, especially if you're in a scenario where you have white walls or maybe like a light gray or something like that, something that's not gonna overly color the shot. You can take a shot that looks like this. Here, Kate, can I have you?
HB, I feel like you've been like one step ahead this whole time because he's asking that question.
I'm trying to make sure I'm giving you all the info.
That's right.
So, man, how convenient.
How convenient that we have.
How convenient that this wall is right here. It's not manufactured by a company and I can move it wherever I want. So say that, you know, you're in a scenario where you have some white walls, you have the ability to move around, you can bring people here and there, or maybe you're doing some corporate portraits in an office. Lots of offices are very white, and you want to be able to move around. You don't have to carry a light stand. This is really a cool thing to think about. So now, instead of going from here, can I have you, let's have you come right here.
In line with the...
Maybe not so much. Maybe take a little bit of a step back because I want the light to come more forward. One more step back.
Oh, back.
Yeah, back. Yeah, that's forward. You go back. You go back.
I'm going my way.
Yes.
My back.
Your back.
Not your back.
Yeah, not my back. That would be weird.
It's not an
Perfect. So if we go from here, so this is, you know, back direct at Kate. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. So direct flash shot. Wait for it to load. Loading and. There we go. So a direct flash shot, which again, I like the look if that's the look you're going for, but that might not be the look you're going for. We can simply just swivel our flash head. I point it up a little bit because I want the light to come from higher on the wall. So I'm going to point it.
Show them what that looks like.
I think.
Re-angle your body for a second. Yeah.
So normally you would just turn the flash head and it would go straight this way. If you listened to me before, I like for the midline of a light to be above a subject's nose if I can get it there. That's the goal. I don't want it super high. That's why I don't love just the bouncing into the ceiling and trying to get your light that way. It leaves a lot of shadows down low, but we want it to be up a little bit. So what we're gonna do is just take that and tilt it up a hair. So now we're hitting that where we want. So now when we take the shot, here we go, 3, 2, 1. We're increasing the size of the modifier in relationship to our subject, and we're getting a really nice soft light. Let's bring them both up so you can see the difference. You're getting a really lovely soft light with the flash on top of your camera, and it looks like a studio shot.
It looks like a studio shot. That's crazy.
And that's, again, nothing but the flash on top of the camera and understanding that we can use reflectors, walls, all kinds of other things to take that light and increase the size of it in relationship to our subject and get a much softer light source. We could do one a little bit better. If we wanted a little bit more coverage, we could step away from the wall a little bit. So Kate, can I have you right here? And let's go back just a hair. Maybe one more right there, perfect. So we could step away from it a little bit more. Granted, I'm at full power on this A10. I might have to actually open up a little bit. I'm having to fight video light, so it's kind of where we are with that. So, oh, you know what? Let's point the reflector a little bit harder. So we could go here.
They're the same. Sorry.
Yep, you're fine. So we could go here. 3, 2, 1. Let's see how that does. It's probably gonna be a little underexposed because we were already at 10. But we can always pump it up if we need to. Let's just pump it up for funsies, just because I don't want to. So we can bring that light in, or we could back away from the wall a little bit more, just increase the size of the light so the light does technically get softer because the light beam is spreading. And because it's having to go here and bounce out wider, we're getting a little more coverage. So you can actually see her arms a little more even all the way around. So that's just using the inverse square law and playing with this, that, and the other. And there are light shaping tools that we could use to do one better on it. And all things that you can use on top of your camera. This doesn't require any type of soft boxes or any of that kind of stuff. So nope, you're fine. Yeah, just moving around like crazy.
Jumping in and out of the
I'm very sporadic. I'm a spryly Irishman. So here, let's throw the Magnum on. The Magnum gives you almost 2 stops more light output. You can see that we're at a power level of 10. Let's see what this takes us down to. So right there. Yeah, let's come over just a hair. I just don't want that. I don't want that in the shot. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. So that kept us at 10.
I like that.
We're still maybe a hair under, but if I bring it up a half stop versus all the rest of our stuff, we have really, really nice coverage. And I was able to kind of just throw the Magnum on there and get some more coverage out of what it was that I was looking for. So again, you can do cool stuff with the flash on top of your camera. You don't have to bring a light stand and a softbox and all this stuff if you just understand what it is that's causing the light to change. The thing that's causing the light to change here is a large white wall or a V-flat or a reflector. We're just taking the light and increasing the size of the light shaping tool by blasting it into something larger. So again, don't be afraid of on-camera flash. It's really, really fun. It's really useful. It has cool looks to it. I've seen people do all kinds of, I've experimented with it. I'm trash with it, but I've seen people do like really cool zooming things. So they'll snap a shot and zoom real fast while they're dragging the shutter, and it has like this tunnel vision effect. Very cool. So I think you can do a lot of really neat things with your flash on camera. Now, let's get a hair more advanced before we sign off. Let's add a flash bracket. Flash brackets are dope because they're going to raise the height of your flash up some. So I have my camera set up to accept a flash bracket. We're going to remove the A10. We're going to put on, I think this is the original one. I've had this thing since the B2 days when we would put the B2 on top of our camera. This is the Pro Media Gear Boomerang, if anyone asks. PBX3, I think they have, I'm not sure if they still make flash brackets, they may. But the Pro Media Gear ones are really cool. I mean, to go from horizontal to vertical like that, I've always loved this thing. Sweet. Now what we can do is we can take our A10. Oh, whatever. They're padded. It's okay. Just gels. So what we do here is we're going to take our A10, put it into the shoe here that I have set up. We're going to tighten it down. Hopefully we don't lose it. I don't lose an A10. Cool, we're set there. And now we need to add some sort of triggering device. So you can do this a couple of different ways. If they make TTL extender cables to where you can put a little box on top of your hot shoe, and then you can run it up here to this and have the camera sit in an extended hot shoe and just use that with a cable. I don't have one of those. I got air remotes. That's what I'm going to do. So you can use one of two things. The Connect, which is lighter weight, so the little hockey puck one, or the Connect Pro. I'm going to use the Connect Pro. The reason I'm going to use the Connect Pro is because I want to be able to change my flash exposure compensation on the top of my camera. With the Connect Pro, again, or with the Connect, because there's no screen, you have to change the flash exposure compensation in your camera. You can do it on my camera. I haven't practiced with it enough to be able to quickly flip over to my flash exposure compensation and just show you that. So I'm going to go with what it is that I know. So now let's go back to the very beginning of what we were talking about. The A10 is no longer touching the hot shoe of this camera. This switch, this TTL manual switch, doesn't do anything at all. It is so irrelevant. So know that. If you want TTL or manual mode now, it's from the thing touching the hot shoe. So always remember that. So you could be in manual mode in this all day long and flip this between TTL and manual. This isn't going to change. This is waiting for commands from this. So keep that in mind. I have This thing the Connect Pro does a pretty good job of working this close, and you have the option to kind of go in here and change the speed of the transmission coming out. So if you're having talking issues, you can do that with the Connect Pro, which is really nice. Another reason I like the Connect Pro. So now when we go directly on camera, we've now raised the light up a little bit. I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit. We've raised the light up a little bit. 3, 2, 1. See what we got. Load. We've raised the light up a little bit. Again, I like the look of the on-camera flash shot. We can, again, play with how much vignette we do or don't have with the zoom. Let's really fast for the person who asked earlier about grids, how the grids change. So that shot right there of Kate, and here, let's just, for funsies, fix that exposure to where it should be. The camera's not overdoing anything, and let's grab a...
Tony says that he has a custom bracket rotating flash bracket.
That's awesome. No, there's some really, dude, there are some cool flash brackets out there. The downside is they add a little bit of weight. I mean, they just do. There's especially this Pro Media Gear one, it's all, I think it's aluminum. It's metal, so it's a little heavier. So let's take the same shot, but with the grid on this time so you can see the difference. 3, 2, 1. So that's the difference between the zoom going all the way in, so that shot before. Let's just show you. A lot of demonstrating this stuff today, so there's a lot of images to look at. But between the two, that's a 10-degree grid versus the first shot is with the zoom motor all the way in. So we are getting some vignetting around the edges, but you're not gonna be able to tighten it up like a 10 or 20-degree grid like that. So something to keep in mind. Cool. Now, one of the things that the flash bracket allows you to do is not have to deal with, when you're kind of keeping that direct flash look, you're not having to deal with the same thing that we were talking about when we went sideways earlier and we had to lift up, we had to put a bounce card on. What we can do now is we can use the flash bracket and kick our light up. Another cool thing, we've now raised the light up even higher, so we kind of get a little bit more of that on-camera flash separation, or the separation of the flash from the camera so it doesn't look as on camera, but we're still kind of getting that direct look. What this is gonna start turning into is more of a butterfly lighting setup, which is one of my favorites, favorite light patterns on portraits. So the bracket's really, really cool for that. So 3, 2, 1. So now with that like that, we're starting to get a nice butterfly light. My firmware out of dateness is starting to make me have to compensate stuff down, but that looks really, really nice. That's the shadows falling really, really low, really, really low. The shadow is starting to fall a lot lower, so you're not seeing a shadow coming out directly from the side like what we were seeing when we went vertical with the flash on top of the camera without the bracket, and it looks really lovely. Again, I love the butterfly look. It's one of my favorite lighting patterns on people. It's a really, really beautiful light setup, which what this also allows for us to do is that same bouncing option with our flash vertical. So a while ago, unless my wall was over here, which it wasn't because all of y'all are over here and that's where we control everything. So I couldn't really put the wall and block the cameras there. So unless you can strategically put yourself around certain things, which you should be able to, you're not generally in a live studio situation when you're doing this stuff. You can kind of play around with it, and vertically you could bounce if it's always to the top of your camera, or you could flip your camera around, but I have a hard time holding my camera like this. Definitely like my hand to be up. So what's nice about the bracket is you can now bounce off of walls and stuff and stay vertical. So can I get you in here real fast and show this? So I don't have to bounce up quite so high because it's already raised up. So here we go, 3, 2, 1. So we're able to bounce this light, get a nice coverage. Let me power up a little bit more. Oh, I just did that from there. I don't need to do that from there. I need to do it from here. I need to flash exposure comp up here. There we go. So go there. There we go. 3, 2, 1. And we're at full power there, so that's starting to get more of the coverage that I wanted off of it. Although I will say that a little bit of the flash is starting to sneak around the edge here. And you can see that from the hard shadow line, which is interesting. No, we're flaring off of something. Oh, you know what this is? These right here are all the metal brackets that have one of the flashes over there on it. It's all those little metal brackets. So that's what the light is hitting off of. So that's where some of that stuff's coming from, is those flashes. So the bracket is a really, really cool way of, here, let me get this off your chair.
Why, thank you.
The bracket's a really, really cool way of being able to change up your flash even more. I also have some other accessories from Pro Media Gear that allow me to, like, I could just go to a tight camera real fast and show them this. Like it has like this little pivot head that you could put you could put a full flash head on. This would be great for, I know that we're talking all things A10, but let's just say something. Oh, there we go. This would allow for you to, we're right here. We can do this here, perfect. This would allow you to put your A2 on top of your camera with a bracket. So you could either screw that in like that, or you could set it onto the light stand adapter, which is really cool. There's some fun stuff out there. There's also this extended one. So if you want to get the light up even higher, you could. Really, really neat stuff. You just essentially unscrew this thing, put that one on there. Or actually you could probably put things like that. Fun stuff. So you have a lot of options when it comes to doing things on top of your camera. I really, again, like the look. I wanted to make sure that we talked about how controlling the light when it's on top of your camera is done. It's a very important thing to know. That TTL manual switch, even if you're not using a bracket and the A10's on a light stand, I get a ton of questions about why when I flip that TTL manual switch when it's not on top of my camera, does it not work? And that's because in the Profoto world, everything's looking from commands from the thing touching the hot shoe of the camera. So if it's not touching the hot shoe, you're not really changing the control when it comes to like a TTL manual perspective. Now on with power, you can turn the power up and down, but if the thing touching the camera's hot shoe is in TTL mode, it's gonna override that power. That's why you, again, go back to using the flash exposure compensation that's on the thing touching the hot shoe. So stuff to think about there. Some more takeaways. On camera flash, it's not ugly. Granted, art is insanely subjective, and you might like something that I don't like, and I might like something that you don't like, and that's totally natural. I personally think it looks really, really nice. I think the thing that scares people is the flashy look, which is just a big difference in the ambient light versus the flash, meaning the ambient light's really low and the ambient light is dark and the flash is very bright. And so people don't like the difference between those two. So how can you fix that? Slow your shutter speed down some. With mirrorless cameras now, you can preview your exposure in your eyepiece, slow your shutter speed down to something that you like, and then just let the flash kiss a little bit of fill into your subject's face. When you're using the flash on top of your camera and you go vertical, it's best, I think, in my opinion, to go with a bounce card and a dome flipped up on the side. So I've got the bracket on, I'm not gonna do it. So with the flash on, when you go vertical, I think it's best to flip the flash head up and put the bounce card facing towards with the dome on top of it. That's going to get the line of the flash above the lens again, not by much, but enough to make a difference. And you're gonna be able to kick some light forward while also raising the ambient light if you're in a room that is light colored ceilings relatively close to the subject. If not, the ceilings are super high, that ambient light's not gonna matter so much, but you're still kicking that light forward and you're doing it above the line of the lens. So in horizontal mode, normal portrait mode, you can go direct if you want to. Vertical, you can also go direct if you want to. It's not my favorite look. You may love it. Again, subjectivity. I like to flip it up, bounce card, dome, that way. And then if you have the option to bounce into something like a wall, you can go with a really nice soft setup or something like that. Any other questions before I sign off this bad boy?
How do you have do you have any updates on getting the Profoto A10 working properly with the Canon R5 Mark II? It's been a year since its premiere.
So I didn't actually know that there was people were having issues with the A5 Mark II. The tough thing is that a lot of camera companies work with us and they provide TTL codes and all that stuff. There's one company that puts a red stripe around a lot of their stuff that does not. And so a lot of that
says, I mean TTL mode.
Yeah, so a lot of that stuff is trial and error for us when we're trying to debug this stuff and fix it. So that's kind of where I can talk about it from that perspective. If you want to, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'm sure Caitlin's going to put it up there. Shoot me a DM and we can chat about it, and I can reach out to our verification team and all that kind of stuff like that. Maybe there's something that's on the horizon, or maybe we have something fixed for it, and maybe I can relay that information to you. I see in the chat, by the way, a yellow head, and I know that that's Dave B. Show.
It says M now.
It says M? Oh, M now? But that looks like Dave. Or at least that looks like Dave's avatar from stuff. I'm really far away. What is it asking? Is it asking anything good, or are they making fun of me?
That's what we just answered.
Oh, that's what we just answered.
Okay.
Oh, if that's not, maybe that's not Dave, but the avatar looked like Mr. B Show from far away. So, but DM me and we'll chat about, and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on there, and we'll work it out.
Awesome.
Cool. So I know we went a little bit long today. There's a lot of stuff to talk about on camera flash wise. Hopefully we were able to answer a lot of questions, show you some cool techniques. Yeah. In the meantime, I hope you have an awesome rest of your week. Caitlin's put my IG handle up there. If anyone needs to chat with me, I'm at the Chris Payne. Feel free to reach out. Let's talk it up. Have an awesome rest of your week. Peace out, everybody.